Welcome to our dialogue on the Amazon's fight against COVID-19 with expert Natalie Unterstell.
Um, Normally, when we speak about the Amazon region and when we try to gather people, gather investments, gather energy to work in the region, we normally focus on environmental issues, on the territories, and not much on the health aspects. And surprise, surprise, with the pandemic, that issue has really popped up as a main thing. So basically, what is happening in the region is that the capital cities, like, yeah, and I'm talking here only about Brazil, okay? The capital cities of Manaus and Belém, they were struck by the pandemic quite early on, and they had a very difficult situation to deal with. The health system collapsed quite quickly. And now it's more or less stable. But the problem that remains is that the communities that are in the remote areas of the rainforest, they've been affected, and this situation is not necessarily improving. And this has many reasons behind. I'm going to talk a little bit about it and also about what we are learning since we started a movement in early May this year. It's a civic movement called United for a Living Amazon. And what we've been doing is to identify opportunities to intervene in this situation in the remote communities, supporting those that are on the ground fighting the COVID-19 outbreak. And at the same time, we are learning a lot about what are the conditions and what are the opportunities to really tackle some issues related to health policies that are not necessarily being brought up to the surface of those that are interested in Amazon issues. So basically, we are people that got united to this. We are all volunteers. It's just a little some of those who have signed up for this. We have more than 60 people in the team nowadays, and some of our members or signatories are very famous, very renowned people from NGOs, from the research world, but also from the entertainment and from the policy. And why we got together? We got together because we saw that although there were many efforts trying to deliver some sort of humanitarian aid to communities on the ground since the beginning of the pandemic, we weren't seeing much effect. So there was a mismatch between the needs and necessarily like what was being delivered. So we thought, well, maybe we can try to establish a new arrangement here, trying to bring people that are not necessarily aware or are not cognizant of the problems, the deep problems of the Amazon, with those that know very well. So the indigenous peoples and also people that are on the ground working with them. So we started, and soon we realized that there were two areas where both humanitarian aid and some sort of innovation were needed. One was the health system, so how to better support the health system in the region. And the other is related to food security. So many of the communities, because they are practicing the social distancing and self-isolation, they've been put into a situation of vulnerability. So how can we work around that? So we got together, we started to understand better the context. There are several data that we've been collecting since we started. So every day we do a monitoring of the situation. We look into various types of data from APIB, which is the Brazilian Indigenous Peoples Association, from COIAB and others. So we try to reconcile the data and understand what is going on. And at the same time to see where we should direct efforts, direct resources to get a better impact. And well, it's no coincidence. I think that while I'm speaking about this here with you today, there is at this very moment a judgment at the Supreme Court of Brazil deciding exactly on the fate of what the Brazilian state is going to do about health for indigenous peoples in the pandemic. So it's live now on the Supreme Court TV. And basically that is because although there are several constraints from logistics, from, the distances are enormous in the region, so on and so forth, the response that was organized by the Brazilian federal government was really insufficient. And on the top of that, we know that this pandemic presented a problem to indigenous peoples, not because they are more biologically vulnerable than we are. That's not correct to say, we learned that. But actually because the social conditions are really not the best ones, are really not adequate. So basically what we've been seeing is that because for such a long time, the health systems in the region, they have really been not well designed, not well structured. Now they failed. That was, no one could expect something different. And basically the state is not being able to fix that. It has to go after the problems that are on the table, but at the same time, it's not necessarily clear what they are doing. The strategy is not clear anyway. So then comes civil society, and then comes civil society, as I mentioned, both on monitoring what's going on and on really trying to support the health system with some actions. So this is just some of the data for today. And as you can see, this could be a country, this could be like a nation with very serious problems of controlling the pandemic, but the situation in the Amazon region related to indigenous peoples is this today. More than 140 indigenous peoples affected, several deaths, and also more than 20,000 cases. So very bad. And why is this, again, a problem? Because we're not talking here only about losing lives or individual lives. There is the concrete risk of losing entire peoples. So the entire culture, the entire, the entire repertoire of traditional knowledge that they have. So anyway, very, very, very dramatic situation, and that's why this judgment is happening right now. The state is being forced to work, and it's not working either way, and that's why we started to do what we are doing. So basically, just to let you know, then what is the action I'm talking about? We're doing three things. One, understanding the situation and trying to see where is most critical at the moment. This is highly dynamic. The virus is moving all around. And at the same time, not necessarily the areas at most risk are the ones that can receive civil society support. So we assembled a group of technical experts, including the former president of FUNAI, Marta Azevedo, which is a demographer. So she was responsible for overseeing the protection of indigenous rights. We have also anthropologists anyway. So we gathered this group to really set the priorities, to understand the situation and to really provide an indication of where to work and when. Secondly, we've been doing fundraising, and thirdly, the execution. And here just some information on the fundraising. The fundraising here is very innovative, because in Brazil, we don't have a very strong culture of donations. We are not much into charity work, such as if we compare with people in the US or even in Europe. Here it's not common to see people that are affluent really, engaging, and particularly engaging with the Amazon region, with indigenous people. So we arranged our movement in such a way that we are embracing those guys, we are bringing them to the group and even educating them on what the Amazon is and what's happening. And this is a very fascinating process. And finally, the execution. So what's happening with the information we have and the resources we are able to gather, we support plans. So it's not about demands, someone needs this or that. No, we are supporting strategic plans that are coming from very known institutions on the ground. And it's not a coincidence that what you see here as execution is a cylinder, an oxygen cylinder, because this is what COVID-19 means to people in the Amazon region today. They need oxygen support. And most of the work that we are supporting is related to that, to support respiratory treatment and so on. So anyway, we're connecting the sites. I think this is a very, very different thing, different for Brazil at least. And I hope you all join us. And anyway, these are the areas, so I'm gonna leave you here. These are the areas where we are working today, all the pins in different points of Amazonas and Roraima and Pará. And as you can see, they're very far away from the capital. So if we don't work with them where they are, most probably they won't be able to really get other type of support, since the Brazilian state, the Brazilian federal government is currently unable to help them adequately. With that, I leave you all here, and I'm happy to get some questions and to explain a little bit better any points that you find interesting. Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Natalie?
I think Marita is muted.
Yes, I would just like to make a complimentary remark. Looking at this map, if you take a sick person from the Vale do Javari to the next intensive care unit in Manaus, that's 1,200 and some kilometers by boat in the sunshine. The likelihood of you arriving alive is scant, if not non-existent. So this initiative is really most impressive. Within the last 2 months or so, it's been pulled off the ground in response to a situation which could, equal the extinction of some of these people. I mean, some of these linguistic groups, some of these cultures. I think it would be nice on a future occasion to invite Sebastião Salgado, the famous photographer. Sebastião has spent years among those people taking wonderful pictures, but this period right now is not about pictures. It's about keeping people alive. And I would very much hope that this message resonates with you. I'm happy it's on your program today. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Marita. Natalie, do you want to respond or take other questions first?
Oh, just want to thank Marita for her comment. And yes, it's been fascinating to see people like Sebastião Salgado, such as Marita, engaged. It's a subtle but very important change in the way that we are framing the Amazon region. We are not framing in terms of the rainforest itself, but in terms of the people that live there and how they can really sustain their well-being. So I think this is something interesting, and thank you, Marita, for bringing it up. Sebastião has been a great supporter, and we are also very glad to have you on board.
Any other questions?
I just wonder if you have any contact with Saúde e Alegria by any chance. Yeah, because they are really models for health in the Amazon for ages, and they're doing very dramatic work in the Amazon right now with the peoples too. I'm very close friends with both brothers, Caetan and the both Scaravinos. So I'll be happy to make any links if needed.
Thank you, Susanna. Sorry. Thank you, Susanna. Yeah, indeed, we've been working with them. So some of the work in Pará is that we are supporting today is completely or entirely implemented by Saúde e Alegria. So it's been a great pleasure for us to work with them. In other regions, we're working with other organizations, like Expedicionários da Saúde, which is also a health focused organization. And yeah, so there's this whole ecosystem of organizations that are in the region and that we are trying to support. And we hope that they do not only do their job now in the pandemic, but also that they survive and in better terms and are able to continue their work post-pandemic.
I have one question. You mentioned the case before the Supreme Court. So
Yeah.
supposedly this can go one of two ways. They decide the government needs to do more, or the government can do nothing or less. If the court decides the government needs to do more, what's the likely impact?
So the likelihood, actually I will speak about two scenarios, Jonah. One scenario is that the court, and I think the result will be positive for the action, but the court will force the government or determine that the federal administration, the executive power, has to be more precise, more rapid in the implementation of actions. And then the government can really, take that seriously and do whatever is necessary. And the other possible outcome is that they do not deny the court's decision, but they just slow down the implementation. So do not allocate the resources that are needed to do so. The second scenario, this one that I just mentioned, is the one that I think is the most probable, because the fact that the government is not supportive of the response to COVID-19 in indigenous territories is not something, it's not a coincidence, it's deliberate. So I think they're gonna work around the decisions anyway. And that may prompt a second step of actions, a second step of legal actions, I would say, perhaps at international courts.
Okay. We need to move on to our next presenter more. Does anyone else have one last?
Like, comment, and subscribe.